So we're talking about reading Revelation through the background or the imagery of Joshua. Well, first of all, the name Jesus is Joshua. I mean, you see that in Hebrews 4, the writer plays on Jesus and Joshua. If Jesus could have given him rest, Joshua could give him rest.
Of all the names that
could have been chosen.
Could have been chosen for the Messiah of Israel?
Yeah.
What do you think? If you think Abraham, he's the father of our faith, or Jacob, who has the name Israel.
But God told them this is the name.
His name is going to be Joshua.
Yes.
Why? Because Joshua in the Old Testament is the figure that most prefigures Jesus.
Why is that name important? What's the big reason for that?
When Gabriel tells Mary that he's going to be called Jesus or Joshua, that's all that's said. You will call his name Joshua. It's not left up to Mary and Joseph. But when Joseph receives the vision and the dream, he says, "You will call his name Jesus because he will save his people from their sins."
Yes.
The name Yeshua, the root of it is the word for salvation, Yeshua.
Yeah.
So he will save his people. That saving aspect of his name is what's critical to the name Jesus.
But when you get into the Old Testament, you have Joshua, and Hosea is a derivative of that too. And both of these names.
But that's because people forget Joshua, the original Joshua, takes over after Moses. His original name was Hosea. But Moses changes his name from Hosea to Yehoshua. That's what it was before the vowel change.
Okay.
It becomes Yeshua after the 4th century. But Hosea is the same root, and that connects then the book of Hosea with the book of Joshua, because the two names are really implied in the name Jesus. What does that mean? He will save his people from their sins.
Yes.
There are two aspects of that that are really important.
Okay.
One is Joshua rescues Rahab, who is the whore in Jericho. Hosea is commanded, the holy prophet of God is commanded to marry a woman of harlotry. Think about that.
Two people, though, that are totally related to the fact that they both have helped a prostitute, both have helped a harlot.
Exactly.
But that's huge, though, because if you don't understand that, when you get to Revelation and we've got a whore in Babylon and we've got a harlot in Babylon.
The thing is, before you get to Revelation, if you look at Jesus in the Gospels, what's he doing? Is there a whorish woman or man, because the word applies to both, that he doesn't rescue? He doesn't redeem?
Everyone.
I mean, you think of the Samaritan woman who'd had 5 husbands.
That's right.
Living in open sin.
That's exactly
got the woman caught in adultery.
Yes.
Exactly. And what does he do? He says, "I don't condemn you. Go and sin no more."
Yes.
He shows mercy. He redeems his people. The same, you've got Mary Magdalene, who had been oppressed by 7 demons.
Yes.
And somehow she's the most loyal, the most loving disciple that he had.
But even you could take Saul, who wasn't necessarily doing whorish activities, but I mean, in many ways, I mean, he's persecuting the church. I mean, this is the radical nature of the grace of God.
He was drunk on the blood of the saints, right? I mean,
absolutely.
That's the whole idea. When Matthew is saved, remember, he throws this dinner.
Yes.
Who's the one that comes to it? It's the publicans and whores, the only people that could keep together. That's where the party is.
Well, in Luke 15, it says that the tax collectors and the sinners were drawing near to hear him. Like, we don't even have a vision in the church that tax collectors and sinners.
Jesus himself said to the religious leaders, "The publicans and whores will enter the kingdom of heaven before you will," right? What does all of this mean?
Yeah, but how would that affect the church? Can you imagine if the church got it's funny because we'll say stuff like, well, God will go to great lengths to save you. We'll say those statements, but yet we forget that in our interaction with people day to day, like, I'm going to push you away, I'm going to whatever. If we really could get that vision that a harlot could become, because in the situation with Rahab in the book of Joshua, Rahab actually becomes a royal bride and ends up in the lineage of Christ. We see her in Matthew 1.
Rahab was cursed by Noah. Remember,
Correct.
She's a Canaanite, so Noah cursed her.
Right. She's an Amorite.
Moses, she's an Amorite, she's a Westerner, so Moses says, put them all to death. They're worthy of death.
Yep.
She's a whore, which is an abomination to God's holy law.
But when you read Revelation through the lens of Joshua, we have another whore that's in a city that's walled up and all of this stuff. Like, this stuff is vitally important to understanding the book of Revelation, because it's not a book of fear. It's actually a book of incredible deliverance.
And everybody takes the whore of Babylon because they don't have the eyes of Jesus to see what his love can make of them.
Awesome.
And so they take the whore of Babylon, and that's my enemy.
That's right.
We think it's the enemy of the church, but we make it a personal enemy.
That's right.
So we identify people. You're that's
exactly
the whore.
right.
That's the beast.
That's right.
We're fighting, it's all our enemies.
Yes.
And what does Jesus say? Love your enemies.
That's right.